Say hello. Say hello. Say hi.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Good morning, right?
Good morning.
So we got Jerome DuBois.
DuBois, yeah, close
DuBois
enough. Yes.
here from Six River Systems
That's right.
with us. So Jerome, welcome. How are you?
Doing great. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Actually, the schedule worked out though. It looks like you had an early arrival, and I was slightly late, which is typical for me. That's my MO. So.
Hey, no problem. This is like first time we're trying to live stream at one of these events, so we're making it happen. We're making it work.
That's right. The show's this is a busy day for the show today. I know. So
yes, yeah. So it's good to have you in the booth. I don't think we've had you on the podcast before.
No,
so
but you've had a couple of Six River folks on the call, which is awesome.
Yeah. So it's good to talk to you. So tell us a little bit about from your view. You're co-founder, right?
That's right.
Right. So tell us a little bit about from your view as a co-founder, like what all about Six Rivers.
So it's been a pretty interesting journey. This is actually my 15th year of doing mobile robotics in warehouses.
Wow. Okay.
So I started back in 2008 with Kiva Systems.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was through that transition with Amazon, and then in 2015 we started Six River. And kind of looked at a very different approach to solve a similar problem. We wanted to make something very accessible, very easy for people to use.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing, right? Over the last 4, 5, 6 years, we've kind of seen the explosion of collaborative robotics and warehousing. Instead of it being kind of a fringe technology, it's now an adopted option, adopted technology for hundreds of companies that are out there. So it's kind of really cool to be part of that revolution, if you will. So
yeah. So I'm curious in that aspect because I started the podcast in 2019.
Yeah.
I came to ProMat 2019. That was like my first time coming to one of these MHI events and really kind of, I guess, opening my eyes to everything that's going on.
Yes.
So for you, being in this like 15 years, talk to us about the evolution of robotics in our space.
It's amazing. So this show actually has gone from you used to walk in and all it was heavy steel, lots of infrastructure, conveyor, forklifts, all that kind of stuff, to now you walk in and there's very little of that presence at all.
Yeah.
And that acceleration has really happened in the last 6, 7, 8 years, primarily in the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And that, I think, is indicative of what's happening in the industry. People are thinking about flexibility. They're thinking about, hey, business changes. Nobody 3 years ago could have forecasted, or 4 years ago forecasted COVID, right? All of a sudden that changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it forced people to rethink about automation, right? It can't be fixed. It can't be bolted to the floor. We have to make it flexible and kind of leverage the technologies that are out there. And thankfully, at the same time, technology accelerated and the price points got to a point where you could now include a lot of very fancy, sensors and those types of things and robots and have them move around very safely on the floor and effectively. So that's been eye-opening.
Right.
And I think the businesses that are out there that have started looking at robotics, specifically collaborative robotics that Six River builds out and a few others, look at it and say, hey, listen, I don't know what the next 2 years looks like, 3 years looks like, et cetera. And while I could afford potentially to put in a much more expensive or extensive automation solution in my warehouse, I don't want to take the risk of taking on that infrastructure and that investment. So they're thinking more shorter term. They're thinking faster returns, easier to deploy out and speed to deploy. And that's where I think, the evolution has begun. So we started with that robot, but we've really built out a lot of software and workflows around it to more easily integrate it into the existing operations of customers today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's great points, and I think it's so interesting to see because even I just kind of got exposed to this like 4 years ago, like you said, and even just in the last 4 years, just seeing like the evolution. It's crazy because I think even back then, like I was thinking like, like robots like in the warehouse, like
maybe
that sounds good, and like 10 years or something like that. But here we are, like 4 years later, and I mean, it's like I think people are coming to the show now, and I'm curious what you think about this. Like people coming to the show now saying like, yeah, I need robots instead of like, like it's cool to see a robot. Right?
So I think that there are really two camps. I think there are the companies that have already implemented and are in their journey, and there are camps that the other companies who haven't and are going to.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think that that's clearly what's happening. The labor shortages obviously continue to fuel the demand for automation.
Yeah.
That's not going away, right? That's just continuing to be a challenge for the industry. And now you have different types of automation to solve different types of problems. Now, thankfully, providers are getting more reliable solutions that are out there. One of the biggest issues was reliability 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's like, hey, I could use a robot and do 20% of my picks or 10% of the hours being used. But now, like these solutions can start providing more complete offerings, right? And they can do more of the work that's out there and run more consistently. We have customers that run 3 shifts, 8 hours a day. 24 hours. And, it's like continuously moving with, 95, 97, 98% reliability on the machines. So that's really what you're trying to plan around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great solution. And I want to go back to kind of something you said in the beginning there about kind of just creating the simplicity of use for the solution, right? So, which Chuck, right? And so, and I will say that I use the Chuck online demo in one of my classes that I teach with my student, where we talk about like business process and kind of talk about the process of that. So, so tell us a little bit about that aspect of it, like how important was the simplicity when you were going about trying to figure out what is the solution going to look like and how is it going to function?
So I think, it is definitely one of our initial design principles when we started the company. We focused on empowering the associate. That was like our first design principle.
Right.
Now, what we've realized that goes much beyond just the hourly associate. That associate's incredibly important. Obviously, they're the ones doing the work.
Right.
But in getting that associate trained up and comfortable with the system in a matter of minutes has changed the way people think about automation, but also seasonal hiring and training practices and those types of things. But what we've also found is that with the amount of work that we've done in our software and our management tools, et cetera, it's not just the hourly associate labor that's an issue, but also the leads and the managers and the GMs in the building.
Right.
And how do you run a more automated building? It's not an obvious question, right? It's not an obvious answer to that question. There are solutions that are cobbled together with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different technologies. For somebody to understand how that building really runs is quite complicated. So what we've been striving to do at Six River and is really to provide a broader solution to kind of simplify that, right? And make it much easier for people to start up a building, run the building, optimize the building year over year over year, getting 10, 15, 20% more throughput. And that's what we're starting to see now. In fact, we did a study recently and we looked at the capacity and the throughput of our buildings that have been running our systems for a while. And they are averaging 25% more productivity per robot deployed out per day than they were 4 years ago. That's 25% a year over year over year. And then you add in all the apps on top of that, just make it much more intuitive to use and learn. So,
I mean, I think that's a great kind of philosophy to go with. As you said, like the initial design, like that was one of the core tenets, right? Was like having this like simplicity and ease of use. And I think, because even though we're talking now like that, robots and automation are kind of like ubiquitous in our industry, right? It's still something that I think, the human mind goes to like robotics and stuff like that's still, it's a little complicated maybe, right, to figure out. So being able to have that simplicity, I think is really a key to allowing, especially that smaller to medium-sized business segment to digest it and be able to bring it into their operation so they can compete, really, right?
Yeah, I think what we found is when we deployed out Six River, we developed it from an operator's perspective, and we knew the associate was going to be the secret to making it successful. But what we didn't realize was just how powerful that is in terms of developing cultures for operations as well, and the flexibility that technology provided. So I do think that now when we look at these companies that are looking at automation, we have dozens of medium, small enterprises that have gone from pulling a pallet jack around to implementing robots. Right. And that's a quantum leap for them. But in terms of their operations, they've improved their productivity, they've improved employee retention, they've improved safety, and they're now like in the modern age in terms of technology. That's one of the things that we're really excited about, is that we were able to take these legacy systems like WMS systems that may have been around 20, 25 years and enhance them to bring them additional capabilities, bring our customers additional capabilities that they never thought they could have before. And using robotics on a daily basis, it's kind of cool.
Absolutely. And I think it's, even as we're talking, I'm thinking about, I'm part of this like kind of independent 3PL operators group, like these boutique 3PLs that are, just somebody that decided they wanted to start a 3PL business, and small, but in those conversations, like these operators, like they are saying too, like, oh, we want we're looking at robots, and it's kind of like a couple of years ago, I think if you're in that position, like that would be like something super daunting, right, to you, and now it's like totally digestible. I think it's a great thing. So tell us a little bit about what people can expect from Six River at ProMat this year.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of big announcements. Most recently, and the biggest one is we've released out our mobile fulfillment application. So really, what that does is allow us to bring our workflows to other parts of the warehouse that are not that don't need a chuck, don't need an AMR.
Okay. Yeah.
Oftentimes, we have customers. I was just talking to one yesterday. Said, listen, like we do 80% of our picking on your system, on your automation system, the chucks.
Right.
The reason why I can't do 20% is because I have up high picking or I have bulky picking that won't fit on there. And what this solution allows us to do now is 100% of the picks can be done on Six River systems.
Okay.
Which is kind of, thinking about it very differently than they traditionally had, right? So now they don't have to worry about managing their orders in a WMS system and Six River. They can do 100% of it in Six River, which is a huge relief for them. They get the same benefit of the usability and the training and all those types of things on an Android-based RF device, which is kind of really powerful. So that's one big announcement that we have. We've got the demo running at the booth now for that. We also announced some enhancements with respect to our sortation capabilities. So we announced that a few years ago, but now we can handle multi-level batch picking and sortation.
Okay.
So we've rolled that out at a few sites, both in Europe and the United States. Obviously, folks that are working with rack supported mezzanine. That's been a big benefit for us. Some of our larger buildings that have 100 plus robots that are doing batch pick sortation. And then we also, a nice add was the localization. So we now are translating our screens and our management consoles into different languages. Spanish, Dutch, Czech, and a few other places as well. Yeah. So, it was one of those things that we always kind of wanted to do, but didn't feel like the need to get it done. It didn't really impact what we were doing from a productivity perspective. But now we've got to that point where we've got enough of a customer base and international expansion that it's starting to ask for it. So there's a couple of those big announcements. And at the booth also, we've got a number of our partners that are there. Which is exciting to see. We've got the Tompkins Robotics, the T-Sort that's there. We've got the Accutech auto bagging, a few other things. So that's fun to see that integration working with our solutions. And we've been doing it out in the field for a couple of years now. So it's nice to bring it in and to kind of talk to our partners about it. So.
Okay, great, definitely. And we'll definitely be checking that out myself as well. I want to see all that stuff going on. And if people are at home, they couldn't make it to ProMat, how can they find out more information about Six River Systems?
Well, they can always go to our website, the number is sixriver.com, and take a look at the information there. Of course, you can do some search. We've got some cool videos. We got the Chuck demo that's online. You can learn how to pick the game there that we've done. But I'm very proud of the customer testimonials that we've done, and a lot of folks that have seen some pretty tremendous performance improvements and work environment improvements through using the system. So that's probably the best place to learn what we're doing. So,
okay. All right, great. So, Jerome, thanks so much for coming by the booth and joining us on the New Warehouse Podcast live stream here.
It's awesome.
Very great stuff. So, thank you
so much. All right, bye-bye. Bye.